Today on Rewatched in 2026, we're looking at the cult classic Mars Attacks. Released in 1996 and directed by Tim Burton, this is a sci-fi dark comedy about what happens when Earth is suddenly faced with an unprecedented Martian invasion. What made me go back to this film is I remember watching it when I was really young, and the Martians honestly freaked me out. I never fully saw how the story played out, so I figured now was a good time to revisit and see what it's actually like. One thing that stood out immediately on this rewatch is just how stacked this cast is. It's kind of wild seeing this many major names in what is essentially a sci-fi satire. Pierce Brosnan even looks straight up like James Bond in this, which is especially funny considering this came out just a year after GoldenEye.
Professor, what do we know about them?
We know they're extremely advanced technologically, which suggests, very rightfully so, that they're peaceful. An advanced civilization is, by definition, not barbaric, Mr. President.
And you've also got Jack Nicholson and a young Jack Black adding to that star power. The tone starts off tense with the space invasion and the government's reaction, but the film has always been marketed as a comedy that parodies classic sci-fi alien invasion movies. So the real question is, does it still hold up in 2026? In this video, I'm breaking it down into what's dated, what still works, what doesn't, and the most iconic scene from the film. So grab some popcorn and let's rewatch Mars Attacks. When I think about what's dated in Mars Attacks, the first thing that stands out is the CGI. While it was impressive for its time, a lot of it hasn't aged well. The burning horses in the opening, for example, look like an early computer-generated chaos in a worse way. I don't really want to get into the alien designs just yet, but a lot of the spacecraft effects, and especially the giant mech later in the film, look noticeably artificial by today's standards. Another thing that feels dated is the lack of urgency in how the world reacts to the invasion. And I think a lot of that comes down to the era that this was made in. Before smartphones and social media, communication was slower and global reactions would have naturally felt more fragmented. People in the film react in different ways. Some try to prepare, some try to profit off the chaos, and others barely take it seriously. But it all plays out in this very disconnected way. Today, it's not hard to imagine how different that would look. If something like this would happen now, information would spread instantly. You'd have live streams, viral videos, and people trying to turn an alien invasion into content in real time. The way people process major events has completely changed. One more thing that feels dated is the classic "we come in peace" setup, where the aliens immediately start killing everyone. That idea fits more with older sci-fi traditions where alien stories leaned heavily into invasion and Cold War paranoia. Modern sci-fi tends to explore a wider range of possibilities, sometimes hostility, but often communication, misunderstanding, or scientific curiosity, rather than defaulting to immediate destruction.
Don't run. We are your friends.
Although I spoke down on the CGI earlier, I will say some of it absolutely works in this movie. The biggest example is the Martian design itself. I love how unsettling these aliens look. Even today, there's something genuinely creepy about their oversized brains, bulging eyes, and permanent grin. They're memorable in a way that a lot of generic alien designs aren't. What's interesting is that these designs originated from the original Mars Attacks trading card games from the 1960s. Tim Burton didn't create them from scratch, but he brings them to life in a way that makes them feel instantly recognizable and iconic on screen. I also like that they don't speak English. Sure, there's a translator involved here and there, but for the most part, they're just screaming "ack, ack, ack" at each other. It adds a little bit of humor, but it also keeps them mysterious. We never really get comfortable with them because they always feel like outsiders.
I've been working too hard to give me a heart attack.
The aliens also have this campy quality to them that I think that still works today. In fact, I'd argue if you drop these exact Martian designs into a modern parody movie, audiences would still embrace them. They're exaggerated enough to be funny while still being creepy enough to feel threatening. Another effect that holds up surprisingly well is the way people are vaporized. Instead of going for excessive gore, the movie turns victims into these brightly colored skeletons before they collapse into dust. It's creative, visually distinct, and still manages to feel impactful. Even after dozens of deaths, it never really loses its novelty. And that's what stands out the most to me about the things that work in Mars Attacks. A lot of the movie's appeal comes from its distinct visual style. Even though the alien designs come from pre-existing trading cards, Burton's interpretation and presentation give the film a personality that's hard to mistake for any other alien invasion movie. I think a lot of these elements could be carried over into a modern version of this movie and still work perfectly fine. As far as what doesn't work for me, the biggest issue is easily the humor. I like to think I have a pretty good sense of humor, but almost none of the comedy in the movie landed for me. In fact, there was only one scene that made me genuinely laugh, but I'll save that for the iconic scenes segment. The problem is that Mars Attacks already has the foundation for a really effective sci-fi horror thriller. You've got an unstoppable alien invasion, people being vaporized left and right, government scrambling for answers, and the constant sense that humanity is completely outmatched. That's a compelling setup. Because of that, I can't help but feel like the movie would have benefited from taking itself a little more seriously. Not necessarily becoming a full-blown horror movie, but leaning more into the tension and dread that are already present. Horror movies have always been able to incorporate comedy, so there's no reason this movie couldn't have done the same while still maintaining higher stakes. Another issue is that when the humor doesn't work, the movie starts to feel like a less effective version of the very thing it's parodying.
The President of France on line 2. Mr. President, the President of France is on line 2. He says it's important.
Hello, Maurice. Ça va?
Très bien. I have some good news for you. The Martian ambassador is here, and we've negotiated a settlement.
Maurice, get out of the room. Get out now.
Mars Attacks is clearly poking fun at classic alien invasion films but these movies are usually designed to create tension, suspense, and emotional investment. When the jokes miss, you're left watching an invasion story that intentionally undercuts those elements without replacing them with comedy that's strong enough to carry the film on its own. I found myself more invested in the alien invasion than the parody of the alien invasion, and I think that's where the movie lost me. Let's talk about iconic scenes in this movie. For my iconic scene, I know a lot of people would probably pick the famous "We Come in Peace" sequence, but I've already talked about that quite a bit throughout this video. Instead, I want to highlight the nuke scene. This was actually the funniest part of the entire movie for me. After the Martians prove they're a legitimate threat, the United States launches a nuclear missile in an attempt to stop them. It feels like one of those classic movie moments where humanity is finally about to strike back, but then the aliens do something completely ridiculous. They somehow vacuum seal the explosion, contain the blast, and then take a hit of it like it's a giant bomb. I don't know why this moment worked for me when so much of the movie's other humor didn't, but it caught me completely off guard and got the biggest laugh out of me. It's absurd, it's unexpected, and it perfectly captures the kind of comedy Mars Attacks is going for. Even though the humor didn't land consistently for me, scenes like this show that it does have its moments. This was easily the comedic highlight of the film and the scene I'll probably remember the most after this rewatch. Overall, I think Mars Attacks stands the test of time. While some of the CGI is definitely aged, the movie makes up for it with a strong cast, memorable visuals, and a unique style that still helps to stand out nearly 30 years later. The action is over the top without becoming overly grotesque, and the Martian designs remain one of the film's strongest elements. Even though the comedy didn't work for me as often as I would have liked, I can still appreciate what the movie was going for. There are definitely a few moments that landed, and I can see why this film has developed such a dedicated cult following over the years. Personally, I think the movie would have worked better if it leaned more into its sci-fi thriller elements fully rather than committing to the parody. The alien invasion itself is genuinely interesting, and I found myself more invested in that aspect of the story than the comedy. Still, despite my issues with the humor, there's enough creativity, charm, and memorable imagery here for me to say that Mars Attacks holds up in 2026. Alright, y'all, that's all I've got for this one. Be sure to comment. Let me know what you thought of the breakdown. Let me know what you thought of the movie Mars Attacks. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.